Meera Sharma and David Rosen looked like the perfect couple, a stunning Indian bride and her wealthy American groom, but by the end of their wedding night, only one of them would be celebrating, and the other would discover that the woman he married never existed at all. In 2018, a 29-year-old woman named Meera Sharma arrived in Los Angeles with a story that sounded like a dream. She said she had grown up in an affluent neighborhood of Delhi, the daughter of a retired diplomat and a socialite mother. Her mannerisms reflected quiet confidence, the kind that made people believe every word she said. She carried herself with grace, always dressed in elegant outfits that looked expensive but never flashy. Within a few months of arriving, she managed to fit perfectly into the South Asian elite community of California. She attended charity galas, art events, and cultural festivals, quickly gaining a reputation for being sophisticated, well-educated, and charming. Behind her flawless smile, however, was a woman running from a dark past. Before coming to America, Meera had been involved in a string of financial scams back in India, where she had manipulated wealthy men and business owners into investing in fake ventures. When suspicions began closing in, she disappeared, changing her name and creating a new identity using a forged passport. Her move to the United States was not a fresh start born of hope. It was an escape built on desperation. In Los Angeles, Meera presented herself as a woman seeking stability and love after years of focusing on her career. Through a matchmaking website for South Asian professionals, she met David Rosen, a 35-year-old venture capitalist. He was confident, generous, and came from a respected family. To Meera, he was more than a romantic prospect. He was the perfect target. David's social status and financial background were exactly what she needed for her next elaborate plan. Their first meeting led to a fast, growing relationship. David was enchanted by her intelligence and modesty. She seemed genuinely interested in his work, listened carefully to his ideas, and always knew how to make him feel admired. Within weeks, he was introducing her to his friends and family, who were all impressed by her poise and charm. Meera played every role perfectly: the humble immigrant, the devoted partner, the woman with simple dreams of building a happy future. David's family welcomed her warmly, especially after she shared stories of her father's diplomatic career and her own education at the London School of Economics. None of it was true, but every lie was told with such precision that even the most skeptical listener would find it hard to doubt her. Her past in India remained hidden, and no one ever questioned the inconsistencies in her background because she was too careful, too convincing. As the months passed, David fell deeply in love. He proposed during a quiet dinner overlooking the Los Angeles skyline, and Meera accepted with practiced tears in her eyes. The wedding plans began immediately, with David's family sparing no expense. A luxury resort in Malibu was booked. Floral designers were flown in from New York, and custom invitations went out to hundreds of guests. Meera appeared to be the happiest bride-to-be anyone had ever seen. But while she smiled for engagement photos and discussed honeymoon destinations, she was already preparing the next phase of her con. Every step of the wedding process was part of her larger strategy, one designed not for love or companionship, but for control, access, and the perfect opportunity to strike when the time was right. While David's family focused on the wedding arrangements, Meera was secretly building the foundation of her deception. Her goal was not just to marry a wealthy man, but to secure a financial safety net that would allow her to disappear once again if things ever went wrong. She began by introducing the idea of a family business venture, something that could connect their two worlds. She told David about her father's old contacts in India and how she still had influence in the gemstone trade. Her story was detailed and persuasive. She spoke of rare diamonds, secret government contracts, and inside access to exclusive auctions. The plan sounded like a golden opportunity, and David, already deeply in love, didn't think twice about trusting her. Meera fabricated a company called Saraswati Exports, claiming it was an Indian family business that specialized in high-end diamonds. She registered the name in the U.S. as a shell corporation and opened accounts under multiple aliases, ensuring every transaction would appear legitimate. Using photos stolen from real diamond dealers' websites, she created glossy presentations and reports that looked authentic. Each document bore her signature, company seals, and references to non-existent government approvals. To anyone who saw them, they looked entirely professional. When she presented the opportunity to David, she made it sound personal, telling him she wanted to merge her family business with his financial expertise to build something together. David saw it as a symbol of trust and partnership. He transferred the first $2 million to the account she had set up, believing it was for investment purposes. Meera played her part perfectly, dating him with progress reports, fabricated invoices, and even photographs of shipments that never existed. Over the following months, Meera requested additional funds, each time using believable excuses. Sometimes it was a new government permit, other times it was an urgent deal that required fast payment. David, blinded by love and the belief that his future wife was a woman of integrity, sent the money without hesitation. By the time he realized how much he had invested, nearly $10 million had been transferred to her network of offshore accounts. But Meera's web of lies was beginning to attract attention. David's business partner, Jordan, started noticing inconsistencies in the paperwork Meera provided. The tax identification numbers didn't match, and the addresses led to abandoned offices in Mumbai. Jordan quietly hired a private investigator to verify her background. Within weeks, the investigator discovered that Sarasvati exports did not exist, and Meera Sharma's identity couldn't be verified in any public or business records. While Meera continued playing the role of the perfect bride-to-be, Jordan gathered evidence and waited for the right time to share his findings with David. Meanwhile, Meera began moving funds out of reach, wiring them through layers of foreign accounts in Singapore and Dubai. She had done this before, and every step was calculated. To her, it wasn't just fraud. It was survival, a game of control where she always needed to be one step ahead. She didn't know it yet, but her carefully built empire was about to collapse on the very night she believed she had won everything. The wedding day arrived under a warm California sun, the ocean breeze carrying the scent of roses and jasmine across the Malibu resort. Guests began arriving hours before the ceremony, dressed in vibrant silks and expensive suits. The venue sparkled with gold decorations, crystal chandeliers, and soft white drapes that fluttered in the wind. To everyone watching, it looked like the perfect union of love and success, a fairy tale written in luxury. David stood at the altar, beaming with pride, while Meera, in her hand embroidered red bridal gown, appeared radiant and serene. Every camera captured her beauty, every guest whispered admiration. She looked like a woman who had it all. Throughout the day, Meera remained calm and in control. Her makeup was flawless, her posture graceful, her smile unshakable. She had played this part many times in her mind: the grand wedding, the admiration, the promise of a future filled with wealth. But underneath her composed exterior, she was counting the hours. The moment the celebrations ended, she planned to disappear. Her luggage was already packed and discreetly placed in the bridal suite, filled not with clothes for a honeymoon, but with jewelry, cash, and critical documents. Her plan was to leave the country that very night. The ceremony went perfectly. The guests cheered as the couple exchanged vows, and the reception carried on with music, laughter, and endless champagne. David's parents toasted the couple, speaking about trust, commitment, and family values, words that only deepened the irony of what was about to unfold. Meera laughed at the right moments, posed for pictures, and even danced with David under the shimmering lights. Every move she made was deliberate, ensuring no one suspected what she intended to do once the night grew quiet. As the evening began to wind down, David excused himself for a brief moment. He had received a call from Jordan, his business partner, who sounded unusually urgent. Stepping outside to take the call, David listened in disbelief as Jordan revealed what the private investigator had found. There were no records of Meera's family business, no trace of her university degree, and several of her identity documents appeared to be forgeries. The more Jordan explained, the more the truth came crashing down. The woman David had just married was not who she claimed to be. While the last of the guests left the ballroom, Meera moved quietly through the suite, preparing to slip away. She checked her phone, confirming that several large transactions had already cleared earlier that day. Her timing was perfect, or so she believed, but outside, David had already called the police. Within the hour, federal agents arrived at the resort, quietly surrounding the exits without alerting the remaining staff. When Meera finally stepped out, dressed in a simple white outfit and carrying her suitcase, the flashing lights of patrol cars broke through the darkness. Officers stopped her before she reached the car waiting at the gate. The crowd of hotel staff watched in confusion as the glamorous bride was handcuffed beside her luxury vehicle. Inside her suitcase were diamond jewelry pieces worth hundreds of thousands of dollars and fake passports under 3 different names. The wedding that began with joy ended with flashing sirens, and Meera's perfect act crumbled under the weight of the truth. News of Meera's arrest spread like wildfire through Los Angeles and beyond. By morning, headlines across the internet labeled her the $10 million bride, and the story became a media sensation. The image of the beautiful bride being led away in handcuffs on her wedding night shocked everyone who had attended the glamorous ceremony. For David, the revelation was devastating. In one night, he had lost not only the woman he loved, but also the fortune he had invested in her lies. While he struggled to process the betrayal, investigators began piecing together the puzzle of who Meera Sharma really was. What they uncovered was a story far more complex and chilling than anyone expected. Her real name was Kavya Sethi, born in a middle-class neighborhood in Mumbai. She had never studied finance or worked in any professional field. Instead, she had spent her 20s mastering the art of deception. Her first recorded scam had taken place in 2012 when she convinced a wealthy businessman in Dubai to invest in a fake art gallery. When the man discovered the fraud, Kavya vanished, changing her name and forging a new passport. Over the years, she built a web of false identities: Meera Sharma in the U.S., Naina Patel in Singapore, and Priya Desai in India. Each persona came with an elaborate backstory, complete with fake family photos, forged certificates, and digital footprints designed to appear authentic. FBI investigators, working with international law enforcement, traced millions of dollars moving through her network of offshore accounts. They found shell companies registered in multiple countries, all controlled by Kavya through proxies and stolen identities. Each account was linked to scams that targeted wealthy men, usually through emotional or romantic manipulation. Her method was always the same: gain trust, offer an investment opportunity, collect the money, and vanish. The victims came from different parts of the world, but the pattern never changed. As the investigation deepened, authorities discovered that Kavya had a small team of accomplices. These individuals helped her forge documents, open accounts, and move money across borders. They communicated using encrypted apps and used cryptocurrency to hide transactions. One of her associates, a skilled hacker, created fake company websites and email trails to make her businesses look legitimate. Another accomplice acted as a middleman, pretending to be an investor or broker to add credibility to her claims. Together, they had stolen over $30 million from victims worldwide. In Los Angeles, detectives interviewed everyone who had known Meera. Friends from her social circle were stunned. None of them had ever suspected anything unusual about her. She had attended charity events, donated to community organizations, and even helped organize cultural festivals. To them, she was kind, generous, and refined. The idea that she had built her entire life on lies was almost impossible to accept. By the time the full scope of her operation became clear, Kavya's network had collapsed. Several of her accomplices were arrested, and her assets were frozen. Yet, investigators were certain that some of her money had already disappeared into untraceable accounts. Despite the chaos around her, Kavya remained calm during interrogations, never showing remorse or fear. She seemed almost proud of how far she had gone, as if every scam had been a carefully crafted piece of art. What had begun as a love story now stood exposed as a global criminal enterprise driven by greed, intelligence, and cold precision. When the trial began, the courtroom was filled with reporters, curious onlookers, and people who had once admired Meera Sharma, now revealed as Kavya Sethi. The media treated the case like a spectacle, following every appearance, every word, every gesture. Kavya walked into court each day dressed impeccably, her posture composed, her expression unreadable. Even in handcuffs, she carried herself with the same confidence that once charmed everyone she met. To the public, she was a paradox, a woman capable of both elegance and manipulation, intelligence and deception. Prosecutors presented overwhelming evidence against her. They displayed financial records tracing the flow of David's $10 million into multiple international accounts. They showed the forged documents, the fake business registrations, and the photographs Kavya had stolen from real diamond traders. Witnesses from India, Singapore, and Dubai testified about similar scams that matched her methods. The digital trail was undeniable. Emails, phone records, and encrypted messages all tied back to her. Yet through it all, Kavya never faltered. She listened quietly, occasionally taking notes, and often smiled faintly, as if watching someone else's story unfold. Her defense team painted her as a woman manipulated by powerful men, claiming she had been forced into fraud by a group of international criminals. They argued that she was merely a pawn, someone who got caught in the web of others' greed. Kavya even took the stand, telling the jury that her so-called crimes were acts of survival, not malice. She spoke about growing up poor, about being taken advantage of, and about using her intelligence to fight back against a world that had never been kind to her. For a brief moment, some jurors almost seemed to pity her, but when the prosecution revealed the full extent of her calculated deceit, the fake marriages, the false passports, the missing millions, the sympathy vanished. After weeks of testimony, the verdict was clear. Kavya Sethi, I was found guilty on multiple counts of wire fraud, identity theft, and money laundering. The judge called her a master manipulator who had turned love into a weapon. She was sentenced to 25 years in federal prison, with no chance of parole for the first 15. David Rosen sat silently in the courtroom as the sentence was read, the weight of betrayal written across his face. For him, it wasn't about the money anymore. It was about the woman he thought he knew, the woman who had never really existed. But the story didn't end with her imprisonment. Months later, investigators discovered that one of her offshore accounts had been emptied just days before her arrest. Nearly $3 million had vanished, transferred to a person whose identity could not be traced. Authorities suspected that Kavya had orchestrated the move as a final act of control, ensuring that part of her fortune would survive even if she didn't. Some believed she still had an accomplice working quietly outside, waiting for her release. Inside prison, Kavya kept to herself. She refused interviews and declined all requests for public statements. Yet rumors spread that she spent her time writing, drafting what she called her memoir of power. No one knew if it was a confession or another calculated performance. What remained certain was that even behind bars, Kavya Sethi's name continued to haunt those she deceived. She had redefined the meaning of a marriage scam, turning what should have been a celebration of love into one of the most sophisticated crimes in modern history. Wedding built not on vows or trust, but on lies worth $10 million.